The antique Ouija board sat centered on Maya's coffee table like a theatrical prop, its weathered wood and faded letters catching the flicker of vanilla-scented candles. 3 laptops glowed in the dim living room, their screens displaying a number that made Maya's pulse quicken. 260 live listeners, their biggest audience yet. "Welcome back to Ghosts in the Static," Maya purred into her microphone, her voice carrying that practiced blend of warmth and mystery that had slowly built their following. "Tonight, we're doing something different." Jake Martinez adjusted his headphones, the plastic warm against his ears, and glanced at the chat scrolling frantically across his screen. Comments cascaded in a blur of excitement and skepticism. He'd been the voice of reason for 7 episodes of their Pine Hollow investigation, the researcher who fact-checked every claim, the skeptic who kept Maya's enthusiasm grounded in reality. Tonight felt different, dangerous. With us, as always, is Jake, our resident skeptic and research guru, and Quinn Booker, our sound engineer who makes us sound better than we actually are. Quinn managed a nervous laugh from behind his laptop, fingers twitching over the audio controls. At 19, he was the youngest of the trio, hired more for his technical skills than his comfort with the supernatural. He kept his gaze fixed on his screen, avoiding the Ouija board. "So here's the deal," Maya said, leaning forward conspiratorially. "We've covered the Pine Hollow murders for 7 episodes now. 6 teenagers, killed a decade ago. No arrests, no justice. Tonight, we're going to try something our listeners have been requesting." The chat exploded with predictions and excitement, a torrent of emojis in capital letters. "We're going to attempt contact," Maya announced. "Direct communication with the victims themselves." Jake shifted uncomfortably, the leather of his armchair creaking. "Maya, I want to remind our listeners that this is, well, it's entertainment. We're not professional mediums or paranormal investigators. This is just 3 friends with a Ouija board and a lot of questions," Maya said smoothly. "But you never know what might happen when you go live." Her eyes, bright with an almost feverish anticipation, flickered to the rising viewer count. She placed her fingertips on the heart-shaped planchette, its plastic surface cool and strangely slick against her skin. Jake reluctantly followed suit, his skepticism evident in every rigid line of his posture, his fingers barely grazing the edges. Quinn remained behind his laptop, monitoring audio levels and chat moderation, his shoulders hunched. "If any spirit is here with us tonight," Maya began, her voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to pull the air from the room, "please make yourself known." The planchette remained motionless for long seconds. The vanilla scent of the candles seemed to thicken, suddenly cloying. The chat grew impatient, filled with comments ranging from fake to give it time to something's happening. Nothing happened. The silence stretched, heavy and expectant. A full minute crawled by. Maya glanced at Quinn, a flicker of impatience in her eyes. "I think we need more people touching the board. Get your hands in here, big boy." Quinn hesitated, his fingers still twitching over his keyboard. "Maya, I'm supposed to be monitoring the levels are fine," she interrupted, her voice firm. "Come on, 3 sets of hands. Maybe that's what we need." Reluctantly, Quinn pushed away from his laptop, the chair scraping against the hardwood floor. He approached the table slowly, his gaze fixed on the board as if it might bite. With a visible gulp, he placed his fingertips on the planchette alongside Maya and Jake. A wave of inexorable cold seemed to emanate from the wood, prickling his skin. "Okay," Maya said, her voice returning to that mysterious whisper. If anyone is here with us tonight, please make yourself known. This time, slowly, the planchette began to move. It glided, not pushed, with an unsettling smoothness. R-E-D. Red, Jake read out loud, his voice flat, his brow furrowed in concentration. Okay, so we have red. That could mean anything. Maya's eyes sparkled with excitement, ignoring his caution. What's red? Can you tell us more? The planchette moved again, more fluidly now, picking up speed. C-O-L-D. Red and cold, Quinn muttered, a small shiver tracing down his spine. That's descriptive. The chat was exploding, a frantic, unreadable scroll of suggestions and theories. Someone had started a poll about what red cold might mean. Others were already crafting elaborate interpretations about blood and winter and death. Let's try a more specific question, Maya suggested, her voice barely concealing her elation. Were you one of the 6 victims from Pine Hollow? The planchette drifted to yes, without hesitation. Jake's eyebrows rose slightly, a flicker of genuine surprise in his eyes. Interesting. Maya, I'm not pushing it, she interrupted, her gaze fixed on the planchette. Are you? He shook his head, but his expression remained a careful blend of skepticism and dawning unease. What's your name? Maya asked, leaning closer, her breath held. The planchette moved in careful, deliberate motions. T-F. Jake's laptop chimed, a soft ding of an incoming message. He glanced at it briefly, then back at the board, his face tightening. Tim Fletcher was one of the victims. He was 16. Tim, said Maya softly, almost reverently, we're trying to find out what happened to you and your friends. Can you help us? The response came quickly, almost eagerly, the planchette seeming to pull them with it. H-E-L-P. Quinn rubbed his forearms, feeling a distinct chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Did anyone else feel that? Like a cold draft just swept through the room? Maya ignored the interruption, her focus solely on the board. Help us how, Tim? What do you want us to know? Do you need help? Jake asked, his skepticism battled with a new, unwelcome note in his voice. Fear, maybe, or a terrifying curiosity. Maya looked expectantly, silently urging him on. The chat was going wild, viewers urging Jake to ask questions, to dig deeper, to find out what the spirit wanted. Jake hesitated, a long, drawn-out moment of internal debate. Then he spoke carefully, his voice strained. Tim, if you're really here, where were you killed? The planchette moved so quickly that Maya's fingers nearly slipped off. Y-A-R-D. Quinn's laptop chimed with a notification. He glanced at it, then at Jake, his eyes wide with a sudden, dawning horror. Holy shit, he whispered. What? Maya asked, her head snapping towards him. Someone in the chat just reminded everyone that Tim Fletcher's body was found in the old rail yard on the east side of town. Jake's fingers were trembling perceptibly on the planchette, no longer just skepticism, but a genuine dread in his eyes. Maya, I think we should... No, she said firmly, her voice sharp with excitement. This is it. This is what we've been waiting for. Our listeners are loving this. She glanced at her own screen. She was right. The chat had exploded, comments flying by too fast to read. Their viewer count was climbing. 280, 300, 350. Tim, Maya continued, her voice resonating with a newfound authority. Who did this to you? Who killed you and your friends? The planchette moved again, more urgently now, almost frantic. HARLAND. Quinn's intake of breath was audible through his microphone, a sharp gasp. Mr. Harland? Are you serious? Who's Mr. Harland? Maya asked, her eyes already alight with the chase. The only Harland I know is my high school science teacher, Quinn said, his voice barely above a whisper. He still teaches at Pine Hollow High School, but he's just a teacher. He's nobody. The chat had latched onto the name like a pack of hunting dogs. Comments were flying.
Robert Harland taught my sister. Weird dude. Harland lived next to the woods where that kid disappeared. I remember him. He used to burn junk behind his house all the time. He taught all the victims' siblings. I went to school there. Maya's eyes were blazing with excitement, the hunger for a breakthrough overriding all caution. This is incredible. We're getting crowdsourced information in real time. Jake found something on his laptop, his face draining of color. Maya, look at this. There's a small news article from right after the murders. Robert Harland was interviewed as a concerned teacher who knew the victims. He expressed grief and shock, said they were good kids. That doesn't make him a killer, Quinn protested, a desperate plea in his voice. But it puts him in the story, Maya said, dismissing his fear. Tim, what else can you tell us about Mr. Harland? The planchette moved again, more urgently than before, almost frantic now. S, H, E, D, then P, H, O, T, O, S, then blood. The chat went absolutely wild, a chaotic wave of exclamation marks and panicked questions. Someone had found an old forum post about Harland being fined for trespassing on abandoned property. Another viewer claimed to have babysat for him years ago, saying he kept his garden shed locked tight and never let anyone inside. Jake's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it, and his face drained of color. His eyes, wide with a sudden bone-deep terror, met Maya's. Maya, look at this, he said quietly, his voice barely a breath. Maya, we need to stop. What? Why? She felt a flicker of annoyance, unable to tear her gaze from the board. He held up his phone, his hand trembling. The message was from an unknown number. Stop talking. He's still out there. He knows you. Maya read it and laughed, but the sound was thin, strained, and quickly swallowed by the rising tide of fear in the room. Someone's just trying to scare us. We're onto something here. Her eyes darted to the viewer count again, now nearing 400. This is dangerous, Jake insisted, his voice tight, with stress, practically a plea. We're accusing someone of murder on a live broadcast. We could get sued. We could get arrested, or worse. We're not accusing anyone, Maya replied, her voice losing its smooth edge, growing sharp with defensiveness. We're just reporting what the board is telling us. Quinn's laptop chimed again, a harsh, almost triumphant sound. Guys, someone just posted a link to a real estate record. Harland's house is less than a mile from where 3 of the bodies were found. The planchette moved again, without anyone asking a question. It sped across the board, frantically. R, U, N. Then again. R, U, N. And again. R, U, N. Quinn stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over his laptop. His breath hitched. I want to end the stream. This is getting too weird, too real. Maya looked at the viewer count, 427 and climbing. A wild, desperate thrill shot through her. Are you kidding me? This is the biggest audience we've ever had. We're about to break the case wide open. Maya, Jake said, his voice tight with stress, practically a plea. I just got another text. He held up his phone, his hand shaking visibly. The message read, Last chance. Shut up. Or he shuts you up. The candles flickered violently then, as if struck by an invisible fist, casting dancing, monstrous shadows across the walls.
Quinn jumped backward, a choked gasp escaping his lips, nearly overturning his laptop. "Did you feel that?" Quinn whispered, his eyes wide and unblinking. "The temperature just dropped." Maya ignored them, her gaze glued to the board, a desperate need for answers overriding everything. "Tim, are you trying to warn us? Is Harland dangerous?" The planchette moved to yes, immediately, forcefully. All three of them froze, their eyes locked at each other. "This isn't real. We're just spooking ourselves." But her voice was a thin, reedy squeak, utterly devoid of conviction. Jake was already gathering his equipment, his movements sharp, almost frantic. "We're done. We're cutting the stream right now." "No," Maya protested, her voice rising in a desperate plea. "We can't stop now. We're so close." Quinn's face was pale and clammy. "I'm out. I'm going to Jake's place. Maya, you should come with us." Jake looked at his phone. The viewer count was still climbing, but the chat had turned darker, a flood of desperate warnings, comments about calling the police, about being careful, about the danger of naming names. "Maya," he said firmly, his voice laced with unshakable resolve, "we're ending this, now." He reached for his microphone, his hand steady despite the fear in his eyes. "Folks, we're going to have to cut tonight's stream short. We've got some technical difficulties, but we'll be back next week with a regular episode, and we'll be taking everything we've learned tonight to the proper authorities." "Thank you for listening to Ghosts in the Static," Quinn added quickly, his voice high and strained. "Remember to like and subscribe, and stay safe out there." Maya reluctantly leaned toward her microphone, her eyes still on the now silent Ouija board. "This is Maya Torres, signing off. Episode 8, out." Quinn cut the stream. The sudden silence was deafening, pressing down on them, amplifying the frantic thumping of their hearts. Jake and Quinn packed their equipment quickly, their movements sharp with nervous energy. The candles continued to flicker, casting dancing, elongated shadows across the walls, turning familiar furniture into monstrous shapes. Maya said, "I'm staying here. I need to think about what just happened." "Maya, that's not safe," Jake protested, his hand on her arm, trying to pull her up. "It's my house," she replied, shrugging off his hand. "Besides, someone needs to clean up. You two go ahead. I'll lock the doors. I'll be fine." Jake hesitated, his gaze sweeping the room, then shouldered his equipment bag. "Call us if anything weird happens. Anything at all. Don't hesitate." "I will." Her words were a dismissal. Quinn was already at the door, laptop clutched against his chest like a shield. "Maya, please just come with us." "I'm fine," she insisted, turning back to the Ouija board. "Go. I'll see you both tomorrow." They left reluctantly, their footsteps echoing unnervingly in the quiet neighborhood. Maya locked the door behind them, the click of the deadbolt disturbingly loud in the sudden silence. She returned to the living room, the flickering candlelight, the only illumination. The Ouija board sat on the coffee table, its planchette resting innocently on the center of the board. The candles had burned lower, pools of wax forming around their bases, creating their own small, shimmering reflections. Maya sat down, not on the couch, but on the floor, directly facing the board, mesmerized. 427 live viewers, their biggest audience ever. The beginning of something huge. The rush of it was intoxicating, banishing all fear. She pulled out her phone and opened the streaming app. Comments were still pouring in from viewers who had watched the broadcast, screenshots of the board's messages, links to articles about Robert Harland, wild theories and speculation already snowballing into a viral sensation. This was going to make them famous. Her phone buzzed with a notification, a new follower, then another, and another, each buzz a validation, a promise of notoriety. She smiled, a wide, triumphant grin, and began typing a response to the comments, her fingers flying across the screen. She was so absorbed in the social media response, basking in the glow of her burgeoning fame, that she almost didn't hear the soft, polite, deliberate knock at her front door. She looked up from her phone. Another knock. So soft, so patient. "Did you guys forget something?" Her voice was steady, betraying no fear, just mild annoyance at the interruption. There was no response, only the insistent, gentle knocking. She opened the door anyway, a confident smile on her face. Robert Harland stood on her porch. He was a tall man, but otherwise ordinary, unremarkable. The kind of man you'd pass on the street without a second glance, except for the large hunting knife in his right hand. She tried to speak, tried to scream, but her throat was a sudden, dry cavern. No words came. "I've been very careful for 10 years, very quiet, very private, but you've made that difficult now, haven't you?" Harland smiled thinly, a chilling, joyless stretching of his lips, and stepped across the threshold, into the flickering candlelight. "Shall we continue the conversation?" The door swung shut behind him with a soft final click, plunging the entryway into shadow, leaving only the dim, amber glow of the candles.